afternoon and welcome to Telemundo News. And today we are going to be reviewing tasks. Our first person up is Juan.
Mutualism is when both benefit from each other. For example, when bees pollinate apple trees, the bees get the food and the apple tree gets pollinated. Predation, one benefits from the other by consuming the other. Example, a lion eating a zebra. Parasitism, one lives as a parasite on another. Example, fleas on a human. Competition, both species compete against one another, such as chipmunks and squirrels for nuts. Commensalism, one lives with or on the other, such as a bird on a tree.
Welcome back, and now we're going to a very special guest star, Ms. Lenneman, biology teacher. Can you please define evolution?
Well, in the simplest terms, evolution is change over time.
What structures are common in the fossil record and suggest that organisms come from a common ancestor? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we have lots of records of common features. They're called homologous features. And we can look at the forearms, for example, of most mammals, and we can even go into other groups. So we could take the mammal, forearm of a mammal, like ours, or a cat, and we could say, what are the bones that are alike in this arm? And they'd be very, very similar. So when we look through the fossil record, we do see a lot of the same bone structure, this homology, the homologous structures that show up. What we find is that those features have changed, and those groups of organisms, therefore, can have different functions.
What role does DNA play in evolution?
Well, DNA is where we're really starting to make some strides, because originally we only had the fossil record. And the fossil record, as good as it is incomplete. It doesn't answer all the questions. But DNA, on the other hand, allows us to really look and look at relationships. So DNA information allows us to look for differences, and it also allows us to look for things that are repeated and are the same.
Does the genetic structure of an individual change, or does the population change over time?
Individuals can have genetic changes. We saw that in the video. I may be born with a combination of genetic information on the alleles of my parents, which is going to change me from them. That in and of itself is not evolution. Evolution has to be a change that persists over time. And to persist over time, that would require more individuals. Well, that's the definition of a population. A population is a group of individuals. And so if we had a change occur, for example, I like to talk about the gray squirrels. Well, if there was a dramatic color change that occurred in one individual, that by itself wouldn't be evolution. But if that individual then mated, and we had lots of offspring, and that color change allowed them to be better at what they do, getting food, finding mates, a whole series of things. And then that color change began to persist in the population, and now we saw more and more of it. Now we would be talking about evolution.
Okay, our last question that we need to ask you is, what are the organs called within an organism that at one point used to serve a purpose?
Well, that's a really good question, and those structures are known as vestigial organs, following the Latin that refers to the word vestige. And vestige means something left behind, like a footprint, and it means that the whole thing is not there, but an impression or a record of what was there is still there somehow. And there are several organisms that we can look at today that reflect back to their ancestral history, and one of the really good examples are limbs that organisms don't use anymore. So, for example, this modern-day python, this would be a X-ray of its skeleton, and we can look towards the tail end and we can see these rudiments or remnants of legs that they used to use. As a matter of fact, even sometimes up underneath their scales on their belly, way towards the end, you can actually see these sticking out. And those are structures that used to at one time be used as legs, but as they haven't been used over time, they are slowly disappearing.
To continue the fun, we are going to go to Jimmy as he answers the question.
Today's question was asking about what are the kingdoms of living life. Well, there are actually 5 of those. One of them is Mineria. Next one would be Protista, fungi, plantae,
and Mammalia. An example of each for Monera would be bacteria, for Protista would be some specific types of species of algae, fungi would be your mushrooms, plantae would be flowers, plants in general, and Animalia would be any multicellular living thing, a tiger for example.
What is natural selection?
Natural selections are organisms that better adapt to their environment and can better survive to have offsprings.
Do most intelligent species survive?
Yes, because survival of the fittest.
Do species undergo natural selections because of humans?
Yes, they do, because competition. If there are white rabbits and brown rabbits versus humans, the humans will easily take out the white rabbits because they're easier to spot. Therefore, brown rabbits will survive.
Okay.
The biome is really just the environment. It's more for plants, like the area they're at. There are 6 different kinds. There are the temperate rainforest, the desert, the grasslands, the tundra, the tropical rainforest, and the taiga, however you want to pronounce that. The plants in the temperate rainforest, they adapt to all climates, from freezing to extremely hot. They do this by having, for example, thick bark in the winter, so that the freezing temperatures does not affect the inside of the trees. In desert, they adapt to low rainfall. But they do this by storing the water in their big vacuoles. In grasslands, they adapt to low rainfall as well. But what they do instead of what's different in desert, they grow deep roots underground to get the moisture. In tundra, they adapt to cold climates. What they do, they grow in clumps with roots that are able to go underneath all that snow. In tropical rainforests, they adapt to low light. What they do, they have big leaves with a waxy coating on it, and it allows the water to run off as well. In taiga, they prevent evaporation. And in taiga, most of the trees have needle leaves. Those two have a waxy coating on the leaves, and that helps prevent evaporation.
Breaking news! Let's quickly go over to Armando as he shares with us some really, really important information.
Hello, fellow Americans. This is the President Barack Hussein Obama. I just sadly just got a report from the CIA and the Department of Defense that North Korea, China, and Russia are going to make an all-attack on the United States coast and interior areas. Right here, you have the D.C. area. The North Koreans are going to nuke the D.C. area because it's the nucleus of America. If the nucleus falls, then the country will fall because there's nothing else that could resist the DNA of the government and how the government is going to function. Also, if they attack Houston, codenamed mitochondria, then the energy produced will be lost, and then the cell will die off because they have nothing to supply themselves and fool themselves. Right here, the codenamed vacuole is where most of the fine minerals that the USA has: gold, silver, coal, fuel, gas, and oil. If that thing gets destroyed, then the whole country cannot have nothing to store the energy from. Over here on the sides, you got the cell membrane, codenamed cell membrane. The coastal sides, it's a weak area because China, North Korea, and Russia, they're going to attack in. They're going to go through the area, and they're going to take over California and the West Coast as well. And then you have the endoplasmic reticulum, which provides RNA, proteins, and helps keep the cell alive. If they get destroyed, then our country won't have nothing to get information from, and supplies, stuff like that, and then they will collapse.
And now we're going to go to a brand new section called Learning Time with Giovanna.
What is the difference between an animal cell and a plant cell?
I don't know. I thought they were the same.
The difference is the cell wall. One of them doesn't have it, and the other one does.
Now, let's go on our way to Jesus as he answers wonderful questions for us.
Okay, so I will be explaining this bacteria that I drew. Cell wall. Protects the cell and holds it in shape. Okay. Ribosomes. They make proteins for the cell. Nucleoids contain genetic material. They are there. Cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance that is in the cell that holds everything. Yeah, you know. The flagella, it helps the cell move. The villi, move, found in male cells. Okay, not female cells. And they're made of proteins, and they take a formation of conjunction or the tube, whatever. Cytoplasm membrane. Okay, the inside layer controls what enters and leaves the cell. There.
We are going to continue this wonderful adventure we are having by going to Andrea as she answers her question. Body systems. There are 11 systems in every human body. The cardiovascular system is what transports blood through your blood vessels and also transports nutrients throughout your body. The lymphatic system helps to fight infections, and it also helps to carry certain absorbed nutrients. The digestive system helps to take in, absorb, and break down certain foods, and it also removes unabsorbed waste. The respiratory system deals with the intake and outtake of air, and it also deals with air and blood transfers. The urinary system helps to clear out toxins through fluids. The reproductive system deals with the transportation and the maintenance of gametes and the release of sex hormones. The integumentary system, also known as your skin, helps to protect soft tissues and some organs. The skeletal system provides the framework and support of your body. The muscular system deals with your muscles, and it helps with movement, and it helps to keep warm, and it maintains your posture. The nervous system deals with your nerves, and it is the response to a change in your environment and any response like to pain or something like that. And lastly, the endocrine system deals with the control of metabolic activities by your body structure. And now over to you, Juan, as you share with us your information.
Hey, what are the differences and similarities between viruses and bacteria? Well, both are microscopic. Both can cause sickness in other organisms, and the differences are viruses are considered both living and non-living. Bacteria are simply alive. Viruses reproduce by putting their DNA into the cells of a host. Bacteria reproduce by literally splitting in half, binary fusion, and making two new bacteria.
And now let's move on to Andrea as she shares with us science information too. Have you ever wondered what gives us the oxygen that we breathe in? Well, this is the answer. It's from plants. You see, plants use this really neat process called photosynthesis, which is how they convert carbon dioxide and water into a sugar, which they use as their food. You see, after photosynthesis occurs, they release off oxygen, which is what animals, like humans, what they use to breathe. And that is how photosynthesis and cellular respiration are connected, because one process is needed by the other so they can both occur. And now we're going to go to Johanna.
What is the DNA replication process? The process in which DNA makes copies of itself used in mitosis and meiosis. What role does tRNA and mRNA play in it? mRNA is the message to make proteins. tRNA transfers the amino acids to ribosomes to create proteins.
And that was our show. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye!